Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with another EU book review. And today we're going to be taking a look at book 5 of the Last of the Jedi series. We're going to be taking a look at Tangled Web. Now, as cool as this cover looks, unfortunately, none of this actually happens in the book. So if you are expecting somebody to get blasted by Force lightning in this book, it's not going to happen. It's just a cool cover. So book 5, published in 2006 and clocking in at 138 pages. And we are back with the next set of adventures for Ferris Olin, who is on his way to meet the Emperor. And he does meet the Emperor, and the Emperor has sort of a proposition for him. And the proposition is a simple one. There is a planet called Samaria, it is a desert planet, and it is run completely by computers and by technology. And somebody has inserted a virus into the computer system of the planet and has basically brought the entire planet to a standstill. Everything has shut down. All the food, the medicals, the government has shut down. And Palpatine asks Ferris, well, I hear that you're a pretty good slicer. I hear that you can do things with computers. So what I would like you to do is go to the planet and find out who the saboteur is, find out who hacked into the systems, and let me know who it is. And Ferris is like, well, I don't think I really want to work with the Empire, and you did tell me that if I heard your proposition and I didn't like it, I was free to go, so I guess I'm going to go. And Palpatine said, yep, you're correct. You are free to go. If you've come, you've listened to the proposition, and now you are free to go. And oh, by the way, pity about your friends, Roan and Dona, isn't it? I hear that they're in prison, and I hear that they're scheduled for execution. Wouldn't that be a shame if nobody was able to stop that execution to save your friends, Ferris? And therein lies the trap, right? Palpatine says, you can go, but your friends are going to die. But if you do my little proposition, my little plan, I can set your friends free. I can even grant them clemency. So Ferris agrees to go to Samaria to find out what's going on with the city's computers, with the planet's computers, and to find out who the saboteur is. Meanwhile, all of Ferris's compatriots, Solace and Keats and Curran and all of that, launch a plan to track down where Roan and Dona are being held and to try to rescue them. They're actually being held on a prison ship. So they're on a prison ship that's just sort of flying around the galaxy, picking up political prisoners and then sentencing them to execution. And they find out where the ship is. They track it. They break into Imperial tracking records, find out where it is. They manage to get to it. They manage to board it. And they do manage to save Roan and Dona at the end. And, of course, Ferris also manages to go to Samaria and find out who the saboteur is. But at the end of the day, at the end of the book, he decides he's not going to turn them over to the Emperor. He's going to let them escape. He's just going to say, well, I found out who it was. We were able to restore the planet's systems, but they escaped. I wasn't able to capture them, so shucks, but I essentially did as you asked. And that was the crux of the story. We do find out a little bit about why the Emperor is interested in Solace. We actually find this out from Vader, because Vader is also wondering why the Emperor has taken an interest in Ferris. I said Solace before, but I meant Ferris. why he's taking an interest in Ferris. And the idea, or at least the assumption that Vader has come up with, is that the Emperor is looking to train another apprentice. He sees Ferris with the potential to use the Force, and maybe, just maybe, Palpatine is looking for another apprentice that he can train that might eventually take over Vader's spot. See, so now Vader realizes that, hey, I'm in the suit. I'm not as powerful as I once was. There are things that I cannot do anymore. I'm not as powerful as the Emperor. And maybe, just maybe, the Emperor is looking to find somebody else to train them as his apprentice and to replace me. So here's the paranoia on Vader starting to creep in, and that paranoia is going to follow him for a long time. He's always going to feel like the Emperor is looking for the next best thing, the next newest thing, something with enough power to replace Vader, because Vader feels that he has lost some of his abilities. He's not up to snuff. He's not the powerhouse that he once was. And so in the back of his mind, he's going to be a paranoid for a long time, thinking that the Emperor is out there trying to supplant him. Of course, the Emperor wants Vader to think that, because that keeps Vader sharp. That keeps Vader on his toes. That keeps Vader aware of things, and he figures it's a win-win for the Emperor, because he can train another apprentice, send him after Vader, and one of two things is going to happen. Vader's going to kill him, and in which case that's going to make Vader stronger. Or the new apprentice is going to kill Vader, in which case, well, the Emperor has a new apprentice. So now we start to see the beginnings of what will eventually be, I think, down the road, this idea of Vader worried about being supplanted, being murdered by a new apprentice of the Emperor. So that's Ferris's deal. I think the Emperor is positioning him to be the next Vader, to be the next right-hand man. Overall, there were a couple of things about this book that I wanted to talk about that that are one that I didn't like about the book, and then another observation about the book. But again, this book is the 5th book in the series. It's still getting a 3 for me, middle of the road. I really don't think that you can rate these books until you've read the whole series, because these aren't books that you're going to read individually. They're not individually standing books. These are essentially chapters in one longer novel. So at the end of all 10 books, we can rate the series as to how it is, but it's hard to rate the individual ones because they're a chapter of a much larger whole. But as the chapter goes, again, this is still sort of middle of the road book where I see where it's going. So let's see how it goes and how they wrap up the story in this series. Now, there's a couple of things I want to talk about the book. One, and I've noticed this in other books in this series, but this one, I really noticed it, and that is Jude Watson loves to pull things out of thin air. She loves to put the characters in situations where you think this is the end, someone's going to die, something bad is going to happen, there's no possible way that they can get out of this, and then all of a sudden, very miraculously, they get out of the situation. And this happens a lot in this series. There's all these miraculous saves for our hero. There's a ship that happens to be there, a pilot that happens to be there, a droid that happens to be there, someone that happens to be there to save them and pull their bacon out of the fat. And that's just a little bit jarring, because it pulls you out of the story. It's very contrived, and a lot of times it may not make a lot of sense. So these miraculous saves that are happening in this series, I know when we read fiction, we are meant to suspend our disbelief a little bit so that we can get into the story, but there is a line between suspending your disbelief and just flat out, that doesn't make any sense of how that could possibly happen. And sometimes these books they cross that line. So I've been reading, and there's been a lot of sort of miraculous saves and last minute saves, and people popping up and, okay, I'm helping you now and we're all free, yay. Or they're boarding ships that maybe they shouldn't, or you would think that they would get overwhelmed, but they're making it. They're hijacking Imperial ships. They're breaking into Imperial systems. It just seems like a lot of conveniences are happening in the story just to sort of push it along, just to make sure that, you know, our heroes are gonna save the day and are gonna survive. And these aren't really canon characters. These are characters that were made up completely for the fiction, so there's no reason they can't die. There's nothing preventing anybody from killing off any of these characters that were created for this series. So they don't even have plot armor, right? They don't even have the excuse of, well, they're canon, right? They're a Luke or a Leia or somebody, so we know they're not gonna die because they're important. They don't even have that excuse. There's just a lot of conveniences happening in the stories, and sometimes it takes you out of the story because it just seems really out of left field. So that's a criticism I have of the series, this book in particular, the series as a whole. The other thing that I've noticed, and just to pass that along, is that Jude Watson has written 2 other series before this. She wrote, I believe, a young Obi-Wan series, and then a young Anakin series. Sorry, that was a hiccup. And a young Anakin series. And so she created a lot of characters in those 2 series. So in this 3rd series, she's pulling in characters that she had created in other series that have all these backstories. And if you're like me and you've never read those other series, you might be a little lost. You might be asking yourself, who are these people and how do they know, Anakin? How do they know Obi-Wan? How do they know all this stuff? It's because they were in characters in her other novels and other series that she created that is now in this series. So that's not a fault of the author. That's a fault of the reader. Just know if you go into this series and you come up with characters that you don't know who they are, but you feel like you should know who they are, these are characters that came from other novels, other series of hers that she's pulled in and sort of tying it all together. So that's probably what it is. If you're reading all of the series, you'll recognize them. But if you're not reading the previous series like I didn't, you just won't have, I guess, the emotional connection or the backstory knowledge of who these characters are and why they're important. And so those are the 2 takeaways I got from this book. Overall, we're still going through it, still middle of the road read. Not a terrible novel, but not anything that stands out, particularly stunning. So just the middle of the road 3 for me. The next book that we're going to read is book number 6 in the series, which is The Return of the Dark Side. And that's book number 6, Return of the Dark Side. So guys, that's my review of A Tangled Web. Tell me what you thought. Have you read this series? Have you read any of her other series? What did you think about that? Did you like them? Did you not like them? What thoughts did you have? Comment below. And as always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Give it a subscribe. Give it a share. Pass it around. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell your people that you know that might have hidden agendas. And until next time, thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and I will see you in the next video.